What is going on, everyone? Griffin here, coming at you with some Switchblade gameplay, and today we're going to be talking about the Perk and Rogue changes that were announced in the Mad Mercenaries mid-season update patch. So let's head over and let's check them out, then we'll talk about them. So as you can see here, this is the Mad Mercenaries mid-patch balance PTS notes, or the mid-season patch notes. And we're going to run through these, we're going to talk about them, then we're going to head back up top and then give our thoughts on them. So first I want to talk about this, the designer note on balancing for 2023. 2023 is the year of gameplay for Rogue Company. This means we intend on rolling out more balance changes. These balance changes are a combination of handling the pain points of our current balance and to run experiments that drive Rogue Company in a stronger direction. We have a guiding star for this year, more defined and stronger identities across the board. While we will maintain the combat core that we are proud of, we will look to every element around it, rogues, weapons, perks, loadouts, etc., to find opportunities to refresh and strengthen their identities. Every balance patch will be an incremental experiment to get us there, and we look forward to going on this journey together with our players. So Mac, his passive ability is being nerfed, so they're reducing the amount of armor recovered when downing an enemy from 25 down to 15. For Cannon, they are kind of swapping his perks and his gadgets up just a little bit to put him in a better spot. So they're replacing C4 with frag grenades, they're replacing rare helping hands with rare blaster, they're replacing epic bulletproof with epic tenacity, and they're replacing legendary tenacity with legendary bulletproof. Kestrel is going to be receiving a nerf to the diameter of her Halo drone blast, so it will go from 8 meters down to 7 meters. For life drain, they are reducing the healing amount on the epic and legendary levels. So on epic, it will go from 40 to 35 healing received, and then on legendary, it will go from 60 down to 50 healing received. For gunsmith, the cost of the perk is going to be increased slightly. So for rare, it's going from 5,000 to 6,000. For epic, it's going to 7,500 to 8,500. And for legendary, it's going from 10,000 to 12,000. For shredder rounds, they are removing the bonus ammo reserve part of all levels of shredder rounds, but they are increasing the damage that it does to armor and deployables. So for rare shredder rounds, it does 15% more damage as opposed to 10% more damage to armor and deployables, but the price has been increased from 5,000 to 5,500. For the epic version, it's going from 15% increased damage to 20% increased damage, and the price is going from 7,000 to 7,500. And a legendary shredder rounds is getting an increase of 20 to 25%, and the price is also being increased from 9,000 to 10,000. The one thing that I've noticed about all these balance changes, and this is something that we'll talk to when we get into the weapons as well, is these are all kind of focused more or less on a couple of strong points in the game, some points of contention, things that needed to be addressed in the past. Mac is a very strong rogue with his passive ability. Whenever he is able to down someone, especially in respawn game modes, with his access to SMGs, with the armor that he can purchase that upgrades it to that 50 armor, he is a walking, he's a walking wall, you know, he's a walking just bullet sponge at that point. So it makes sense to reduce his armor from his armor regain from 15 to 25, and that really doesn't affect how much armor he has at the start of the round or anything like that. It just has to do with him being able to gain it back. So in demolition, it's going to make him much less viable if you're trying to run him as a more tanky rogue, but it should balance him out, in my opinion, whenever it comes to respawn game modes. With Cannon, they're trying to figure out exactly where they need to put Cannon at, right? Because the C4 is kind of lacking in a lot of ways. You know, there is definitely a charge time to it where you have to throw it, wait for it to hit the ground before you can trigger the explosion on it. And then they're moving a couple of perks around for him. I think it's very interesting that they're dropping tenacity down to an epic level, but they're dropping the bulletproof up into a legendary. And I believe Cannon already has like a 4 or 5 toughness, so he's going to have a 5 toughness with a legendary bulletproof with stems still, and epic tenacity is still going to be really good for him. He's going to have a legendary life drain. He is going to be very, very, very good. And I think that you're going to see people start to run Cannon a little bit more. At least I'm going to start to run Cannon a little bit more, because having that legendary bulletproof, having the 5 toughness, having no speed penalty, like, it's going to make him basically Chalk 2.0. Chalk with the minigun. It's going to be absolutely insane. And I think that a lot of people need to be on the lookout for how well Cannon can perform in the right hands whenever these changes do come into the live game. With Kestrel, we've all talked about it. Kestrel has needed a ton of changes with her blast radius ever since they buffed her in one of the last major updates that happened. Now, yes, they needed to buff the blast radius of it to begin with, but they didn't need to buff it in such a way to where A, it increased the damage, and B, it increased the explosion size. Like, in my opinion, they should have either A, increased the damage and left the explosion radius what it was, or B, increased the explosion radius and leave the damage what it was. But they opted to do both at one time, and as you can see, Kestrel is just, she's running the field right now, because there's nothing that can really contend with it. Even if you have legendary tenacity, it's not enough to stop this full assault of these explosions unless you're quick enough to actually roll away from them or get away from them in some capacity. So it is nice that they are looking at ways to, you know, improve the quality of life for people that are playing around her. I get that, but it's going to be really, really nice having a little bit of a smaller radius. Hopefully they'll go in there and take more of a look at the actual damage that this thing does, because in my opinion, the damage is still pretty crazy for the size of the explosion, even with that reduction from 8 meters down to 7 meters, but we'll see what they end up doing in the future. For life drain, it makes sense why they are reducing it for the epic and legendary. So rare gives you 20. So if you drop it down to 15, then it doesn't really feel like it's going to be doing anything. But it makes sense whenever you have something that is impactful to the game currently as life drain, because life drain is the best perk in my opinion to run whenever you're playing respawn game modes, especially whenever you're running like Lancer or Glimpse or Sigrid or Cannon. Like, people that have legendary life drain can basically just run the map and they can take on 2, 3, 4 people at one time. And as long as they maintain focus and they consistently get their downs, there's not a lot that the enemies can do. I mean, they can all team shooter, but if you get into a flanking position and then you just start wreaking havoc, then it feels like a very, very much lost cause. So I do like this life drain perk a ton. So for Gunsmith, they're increasing the price. They're not changing the perk. They're not changing the way that the perk works or anything like that. They're just increasing it by 1,000 across the board, except for legendary is going from 10,000 to 12,000. In the write-up, it says that it's a force multiplier that can greatly affect the performance of our weapons. Based on our data, testing, and community feedback, we felt that this family of perks, power, contribution, and when you could access it was at the very least under cost. So Gunsmith gives you range, right? It increases your effective range of your weapon. So basically what they're trying to do is balance it out to where if you want that extra range, and of course you'll get, you know, the extra bullet reserve in your clip, it's going to increase your clip size at the same time. But they're making it basically where if you want that extra range on it, then you absolutely can have that. You've just got to pay for that. And it makes sense for characters that have access to SMGs and shotguns only, but they have access to the Gunsmith perk. It makes 1000% sense for that. For other rogues like Fixer and rogues like that, like, you can run them with DMRs and you can still be very effective at long ranges without the Gunsmith perk. It just feels like Gunsmith contributes to it in a small way, in my opinion. So I think that you'll see people that have access to assault rifles and DMRs not gravitate towards the Gunsmith perk anywhere near as much. But I think that the people with SMGs and shotguns exclusively will gravitate towards it. And then shredder rounds, I mean, this is amazing, right? So they're removing the bonus ammo reserve part of it. But the trade-off is it does increase damage to deployables and armor. And more so armor in this case, because, you know, the deployables, except for the anvil shield, are pretty much one-hit kills at this point. But going from 10% to 15% at that rare level, 15% to 20% at that epic level, and 20% to 25% is going to feel really, really good in a game that feels like it is currently dominated by armor. So all in all, for the rogue changes and the perk changes, I think that these are very, very much needed. I think they absolutely make sense, and I'm interested in hopping into the game and checking these things out. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, be sure to check that description for links to Facebook, Discord, and Twitter. Those are the places to contact me. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, then consider hitting that join button to become one of the 256 crew members. Lastly, on Thursdays from 8 until 11 p.m. Central Time, Sundays from 10 a.m. until we get tired, I will be streaming here on YouTube. So if you're interested and available, please feel free to stop by and say hello there. Thanks for watching, guys.
I can't believe that knife is still sitting there. God damn it.
Nearing victory. Enemy spotted.
When you're trying to make sense of Rogue Company.
Oh!
Adam has to just be sitting here just kind of halfway chuckling to himself the whole freaking time.
I have to mute myself a lot.
It's like these guys are doing this to themselves on purpose.
Dude. Idiot. Running from me.
I've done it to myself for about 950 hours. I think it's 953 by now. A real number.
Child's play.
Almost 1,000, and when I die, I'm like, how? Christ on a bicycle.
Yeah, I got a fist too.
One kill until victory. Nice work, team.
I think they already said they were losing. Oh.
Wait, it's over already.
They're doing that so they can justify it. Well, I started using a baseball bat about halfway through.
It's like, did you?
That's the only reason they won.
Just trying to get my melee mastery.
Did
Also,
feel
you're like, I'm an ultimate weapons master, bitch.
yeah. What you know?